let's go ahead and I've got the list of questions here as well. But I'd love to hear from you, man. Like how did you discover Lindsay's work?
I actually met Lindsay at a writers conference, the Pacific Northwestern Writers Association conference. And it was interesting because that was around the time, and some fans of the books may not know this, the first Kelton Moore book, The Beast Hunter, was originally a serial that he did on his website. And so he was getting ready to do that. And we kind of fell into a conversation because I had been toying with the idea of doing something similar on my website. I was like, wow, somebody else is doing this too. So that was kind of cool. We kind of bonded over that. And then I picked up, because Lost Under Two Moons had just recently come out at that point. And I picked it up, and I remember it was great. And I always use this as a selling point when I'm talking about Lindsay's books, but it was one of the, I can count on less than 10 fingers the number of books I've read as an adult that I've finished in one sitting because I just couldn't put it down. And Lindsay was the author of like 4 of those. It was like 3 or 4 of them. And the first one was Lost Under Two Moons. I was just hooked at that point.
That's awesome. And that's funny because that was the first book I read of his as well, was Lost Under Two Moons. And I actually didn't know that The Beast Hunter was, serialized it initially. I had the opportunity to meet Lindsay at church, and I read Lost Under Two Moons, loved it. And then I got invited to be a beta reader for Into the North. And I hadn't read Beast Hunter before that. So it was kind of a cool perspective to jump in, in medias res. And I loved it. I loved Into the North. It's still probably my favorite, probably because I came in with that one. Then I went back and read Beast Hunter. But man, I tell you what, it's really cool. It's rare, I think, for readers to get to have such a good relationship with authors that they like. So I was really, really happy to get to know him that way. So do you have a favorite of the Beast Hunters so far?
Oh man, I'd have to say for me, it's a tie between Into the North and Dangerous Territory. Like both of just the way they expanded the universe and added more depth to the characters and everything. It was really fun getting to explore different parts of the world.
Yeah,
you said your favorite was Into the North. Is there a particular reason why Into the North is your favorite?
Yeah, that's a good question, Aaron. I think probably because it was the first one I read, and just fell in love with the characters. Borbatai is such a cool character. But it was really, it was my first foray into, kind of steampunk flavored stuff, because I had read a lot of adventure novels. I read a lot of Westerns growing up, read a lot of, just like mystery novels and thrillers, but I hadn't really gone into sci-fi or fantasy or anything like that. So it was a perfect coming together of these genres for me, because, here's a mining camp. That's something I'm familiar with my Western backgrounds. Oh, there's a monster. That's cool. And just the little bit of mystery that was thrown in there. I think one of Lindsay's strong suits, it really is his pacing. And I think that's evident in Dangerous Territory as well. And I love the title of Dangerous Territory. I don't know if he's published this a lot, but the original title was going to be Among Beasts, and I kind of like, which sounds cool, but I do like the change, Dangerous Territory. I love, we shouldn't judge books by their covers, but I 100% judge books by their covers and by their titles.
Oh yeah, there was a book I read years ago. I don't remember who the author was, but it had this absolutely gorgeous title or gorgeous cover, and the title was amazing. It was City of Dark Magic. And I was just like, oh, this is awesome. Like, this is going to be so cool. And I bought the book on that, and the back blurb sounded so good, and it was terrible. And that has
And
never happened with Lindsay. Lindsay's books always live up to the promise of what you think you're going to get. You get that and more.
yeah, absolutely. And I like it because I mean, obviously, Lindsay is always growing as a person, as an author. You know, he changes, his circumstances change, you know, whatever. Uh, but it's consistent. You know, his writing obviously it has a very distinct style, and Kelton as a character in particular, you know, is the same person, but also continues to grow. And I think, you know, over the last three books, you know, and short stories as well, we're getting to the point like where if he's faced with a situation, we can make a pretty educated guess of how would Kelton respond, you know, in X situation or whatever. So I think that that's cool. And you know, that was one of the other things that one kept me reading, is because, you know, these are characters that I've grown attached to.
Oh yeah, and I really like the way Lindsay's not afraid to make characters look at the uncomfortable truths about themselves. Like in Dangerous Territory, when he runs into some characters that I don't want to give too many spoilers in this, but you know, if somebody hasn't read the books, but you know, he runs into some of the Heterak Slovak wranglers, and they're nothing like the ones that he met in the first book, but he has such a terrible taste in his mouth from the ones he met in the first book, and he really has to work to overcome that first impression and, you know, give these guys a chance. And there's just lots of little things like that that, you know, the characters have to deal with and confront, and that's really something I've always appreciated about Lindsay's writing.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of cool because you get those payoffs, and obviously they're in order. But you know, I tell people all the time, I mean, like, you could read them out of order and still, you know, get something good out of them. You know, I don't think there's a series. Yeah, there's not a book series in the world that I have read in order, and which is crazy. But it just always depends on which book I pick up first. But yeah, that's a really good example you brought up of, you know, it brings this world to life. It shows, you know, characters changing and growing and developing, uh, and very relatable too. Because I mean, how often do we have to confront our own preconceived notions or prejudices or whatever, and those change? Also, you know, and I'm glad he changed the title to Dangerous Territory, because, you know, obviously there's monsters and beasts in it, but you know, that isn't really the most dangerous thing that he faces in that
Mm-hmm.
book. And like you said, yeah, I don't want to give too many spoilers for those who haven't read, but like, there were situations in Dangerous Territory, I'm like, how is this going to work? You know, what's going to happen here? Even more so than in other books. So, you know, the peril definitely escalates.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
so Aaron, we've kind of talked about this, but what kind of impact have Lindsay's stories had on you?
You know, Lindsay's writing is one of those one of those things. It's one of my library kids had a really good way of describing. I'd never heard this applied to books until last year. They said it's comfort reading. It's something you can go back to and read over again and get a sense. And I'm not a big rereader. I it's very rare that I go back and reread something unless it's something I really, really like. And even then I have to wait a while before I go back to it. I had a friend who, the way you could tell if she really, really liked something was when she got to the end of the book, she'd immediately flip to the front and start reading it again. And I've never been able to do that. I have to wait a bit before I can sit back and reread something. But a lot of Lindsay's books, like it's, you know, it's just fun to go back and reread. And it's, you know, you get that classic sense of adventure. There's almost like a nostalgic aspect to reading one of his stories, even if it's a new one, which is kind of interesting, you know. And I don't know, it's, in a way, it's kind of tough to put words to, but you know, there's a very comforting aspect to sitting down with a Schaffer novel and diving into a new adventure.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, and that actually brings up a good point. You know, so one of my favorite authors as a kid was a well-known frontier author, Louis Lamour, and you know, before World War II, he had been writing a lot of short stories, you know, adventure stories, and that was really popular at the time. You know, like Man Against Nature, you know, all these kinds of things, and then when after the war, people were kind of like fed up with it. It's like, okay, we've had enough like real life adventure. So that's when he reverted to, you know, the classic Westerns, you know, a little bit more nostalgia. And that's what I love about Lindsay stories is like they have, like you said, that nostalgia, but because there are these fantastical elements, it's still new. You know, it never gets old because,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, I think it's really cool because I mean, you and I probably aren't going to encounter beasts next time, you know, we go for a hike, but you know, you can always imagine that. As opposed to like the real challenges that we have to face. And for me, after I met Lindsay and I read Into the North, that's when I got serious about writing myself. And in fact, my first novel, I was like, I want to include some elements of that. So I had it take place, you know, in the winter, and there was lots of snow and cold, and that was a you know, a motif in it because I had just read Into the North. So Lindsay's been such an inspiration for me in terms of my own writing. And so we've talked a lot about Beast Hunter and Lost Star and Two Moons. Have you read his anthology of short stories, Magic, Mystery, and Mirth?
Yes, I love Magic, Mystery, and Mirth. There is some great stuff in there. I and I love how it really showcases his range from lighthearted comedy type stuff to the really serious, dramatic, like, gosh, what's the name of the, is it Disconnected? Story about the guy who he's so like zeroed in on his technology.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's almost like a Twilight Zone episode. It's, oh, that one just sends tingles down your spine. It's crazy. And then in the same anthology, you have, you know, the story about the people who are suing a genie because they don't like their wishes that they got, you know. I mean, it's, oh, you know, it's not one of the bigger titles, if you will, you know, probably not one of the more widely known ones, but oh, it's one of my favorites. It's got some great stuff in it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and like, yeah, his range is definitely exemplified there. You brought up a great point. Like, you know, I mean, you have, I mean, and taking, you know, some familiar elements from the genre, like, oh, here's a genie. Oh, but you know, he's, you know, take him to court. You know, like that's new. Yeah, I always kind of shake my head when people say, "Oh, there's no new stories." You know, it's like, okay, you know, maybe not, but you can always do something different, and you can always do something that hasn't been done before, or you can put a new twist on it. It's like, I like to cook, so it's like a very familiar recipe, but you can experiment and add this seasoning and tweak this and take out that ingredient and put this in instead, substitute that. Because you get things like talking swords. It's a lot of fun. I think that he does short stories really well, and I think that is a genre that's really hard to get right, because you don't have, and on the surface it's easier because it's like, oh, it's shorter. I think it was Mark Twain who said, "Sorry about the long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one." Because you're not going to be able to do as much in a limited space. But yeah, so we talked about rereadability as well, and one of the things that I'm really anxious for is an audio version of Schaffer's work, especially Beast Hunter, because I think that is such a good thing that I could just sit down and listen to. Obviously reread too, but in like my job, I'm working with my hands and I have lots of time to listen to things. And I'm like, man, I would just love to plug in. I know that that's coming down the pipeline, and that's the cool thing. Like obviously you and I have authors that we really like who are now deceased, who wrote decades ago, and they're kind of well established. But with Lindsay, here we are, in the middle of it, in the thick of it, and we get to see stuff, and we actually have to wait for the next book to come out. That's kind of the nice thing about getting into a series, and I'm always envious of people who are just discovering him because, there's so many books already out. But I remember I was, emailing him and messaging him all the time after Into the North. I'm like, okay, when's the next one coming out?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's always been kind of interesting to me. I had I have a number of friends who they have a very strict policy of they will not start reading a series until that series is completely finished and they can just like binge read all the books at once. And I've just never quite gotten that. I'm like, but the anticipation waiting for the next book to come out is part of the fun, Yep. You get to speculate and and then it finally comes out like, oh yes, now I get to see if I was right about everything.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, because and for some authors, you might end up waiting a long time for them to finish, so yeah, I agree. I think that there's joy in the journey, especially in waiting. So that's another question. When you pick up a Schaffer novel or short story, what are you most looking forward, and what do you know that you're going to find?
Well, one thing's for sure, you're going to find a character that you can relate to. There's going to be something about them, no matter how fantastical the situation is that they might be in, that you can say, oh, been there, buddy. It doesn't matter whether it's Lost Under Two Moons, where the character is stranded in an alien wilderness, or it's the Beast Hunter, where he's going out and hunting these fantastic beasts with all of this crazy ammo that, doesn't, we don't have here, although, man, it'd be cool if we did,
Oh,
if
yeah,
you needed
that'd be so cool.
Protect your farm from beasts, but, yeah.
Yeah, I would almost take the, it's like if we could have that kind of ammunition, but we had to have those beasts, in our world, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take that deal. Yeah, I like that. You're going to find characters that you can relate to, which is crazy, especially for the genre. It's like, how can you relate to someone who's on an alien planet? Oh, easy. Like I've been in new places before, I've been the new guy at work or whatever. We might not be monster hunters, but we've all had challenges. We've had people we disagree with. We've made new friends. We've had relationships not work out. Anything. There's so much to relate to, and I like that because Kelton obviously is our hero, but he's not perfect, and neither are we. And I like this question because for me it's almost like I don't know what to expect, like especially in the short stories. We might get a talking sword, we might get a Twilight Zone, and I think that's part of the joy. I don't know what I'm going to find, but I know I'm going to like it. It's like opening a present. You shake it and you're not sure what's inside.
And oftentimes I wouldn't say necessarily every story has this one, but a lot of them do. They have like a big wait, what moment in them. Mm-hmm. I remember that was one of the big things that kept me going on Lost Under Two Moons. I remember it vividly because I didn't have a Kindle yet at that time, but I was reading it in ebooks. I was sitting at my laptop reading the story, and my back was getting kind of stiff, so I was about to get ready to get up. And Lost Under Two Moons, of course, is told in the format of the journal entries. And, all this stuff is happening. And, I think it was when he was going down the river and catches the virus or something like that. Anyway, there comes to this point where you open up the next journal entry, you turn the page, and it just says unreadable. And it was like, wait, what? What do you mean unreadable? What happened? And that was like, yeah, there was no way I was stepping away from the computer at that point. I had to know, like, what do you mean unreadable? Man, a lot of the stories have a moment like that where it's like, what do you mean?
Yep.
Hold on.
Yeah. That's a good point. Cause I mean, like, especially with, the beast hunters, I mean, we know Kelton isn't going to die. Right. But I mean, there are like situations where it's like, holy cow, like, how's he going to get out of this? What's going to happen? What's going to, so, and obviously having some really good, I hate to say secondary cause they're not secondary, but, these other characters as well who we don't know what's going to happen with them, and you mentioned relatability. Has there been any time when you're reading one of his stories that helped you get through something difficult?
I wouldn't say personally that I've had an experience where it helped me get through something difficult, but I've definitely recommended his books. I'm a librarian by profession, and I've definitely recommended his books, like, for people who are having a hard time and are looking for, like my kid said, comfort reading, and say, hey, give this a try. I've recommended a lot of his stories for some of my reluctant readers that I find at like the middle school level, different things, because his books have a lot of elements from pieces of literature that still get brought up a lot in education, and they're still put out there. But as great as they are, some kids have a difficult time connecting with that. Either by virtue of it's just not their thing, or not something they've been exposed to before. They just have a difficult time with it. They like certain elements of it, but the piece itself just doesn't appeal to them. And yet I can hand them this Schaffer novel and say, hey, here's this book that has these pieces that you like, but it's written in a much more engaging way, in a much more inviting way, and it's I've managed to, I'm going to brag on myself a little bit here. I've managed to create a couple of Schaffer super fans here in Sweetwater
Nice.
County because like,
That's awesome.
here you go. And they were like, oh, this is amazing. Are there more of these? Yes, there are.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's really the highest compliment you can give to him, or any artist, is sharing that work. Once you try, I'm like, man, this is good. I need to tell everyone about this. Yeah, I've definitely given his books as gifts. One of my nephews too. He's grown up, and this, I mean, this genre was made for him. So it's really cool to see. And yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, I don't know if personally, like, this is his writing has necessarily helped me, through something difficult. But then at the same time, I mean, how would I know? Because I mean, it might not have been, directly related to that. But I mean, there have been times when I've been going through a hard time, at work or whatever. And I happened to be reading one of his books, and I obviously made it through that hard time. So it's, it's like you don't know the benefit.
You know what? I actually just thought of one. It reminded me, actually, Magic, Mystery, and Mirth was one of the things that helped me through when my grandmother passed. I was actually I was supposed to be one of the beta readers on Magic, Mystery, and Mirth, and I had to back out because my grandmother passed in the middle of the reading, and so I had to fly out to Illinois and all of this stuff. But I'm
sorry to hear that.
I wasn't able to get the feedback back in time for when the book came out, but I continued reading the stories, and it was just one of those. It was nice to have that grounding, relatable piece of comfort in that time.
Yep.
That was just like, okay, everything's gonna be all right.
Yeah, for real. No, and that's the thing. I mean, some people talk about, reading fiction as, escapism, and some people mean that negatively, but I don't see it that way. I think fiction is just as, if not more, vital to, society and to the human family as, nonfiction, as his, because I mean, look at all of these stories that have become so foundational culturally. I mean, even like Lord of the Rings, when that came out, it was the second most read book after the Bible. It's just like, man, like, that's had a huge impact. And I want to see Schaffer novels fill the world. I think that's awesome that, being a librarian, you are in the thick of it. I mean, it's so cool that we still have printed books, and obviously I'm grateful for technology like Kindle and being able to read things on mobile devices. But just the fact that, I mean, that there are still writers, like, that's why, like, of all the changes that have occurred throughout the history of the earth, like, that there are still people who want to tell stories. Side note, are you from Illinois then?
My family is.
Okay. Nice.
I consider myself a native Wyomingite. We came here when I was like 3 months old.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, my family's kind of from all over. But
nice. Yeah. I grew up in Naperville, Illinois, and then we moved to Washington when I was 13. So, but man, Wyoming is great. I've driven through there many times and vacation in Jackson Hole. So I know what cold is, so I'm sure you could appreciate into the north.
It was very familiar reading some of the winter scenes, and out there, it's like, ooh, yep, I know what that feels like.
Yeah, no, for real. And I've had the amazing opportunity to go with Lindsay to the Brass Screw Confederacy 2 times, which is a steampunk festival in Port Townsend, Washington, and sit at the table with him and talk about his books. And it was so cool. I mean, apart, from getting sales, like just to be able to talk about the books. And the second year I got to dress up as J-Lock, and yeah, it was it was awesome. It was so cool. And it's not a hard sell, because it's something like you and I, like, we actually enjoy. We're not we're not recommending a product that we wouldn't use ourselves. This is something that's been meaningful. So we've kind of hinted at some of his upcoming projects, but is there anything in particular that you are looking forward to that's in the works?
I am looking forward to the next Beast Hunter. It's always fun to look forward to the next thing in the series, but I'm really looking forward to when he comes out with something totally original from the Beast Hunter or the other series or worlds that he's had come out so far, just because I want to know what else is in that brain there.
Yeah.
What else does he have hiding in there for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the cool thing, because he's talked about, he's got another anthology coming out, which is going to be great. And I feel kind of selfish. I'm really looking forward to the next Beast Hunter, but obviously, he has more to offer than just that. Another author that I really liked, Lee Child, who did like the Jack Reacher thriller series. People asked if he had other stories to tell, and he's like, nah, fans just expect this. I just want to do this character. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But I mean, he ended up doing 25 novels about the same character. And it's an ongoing series now, his brother's writing, but which is cool, more power to him. But I mean, after like 25 novels about the same character, you're probably going to run pretty thin on things to tell. So I do appreciate Lindsay, not putting all his time into Beast Hunter. I mean, obviously that's my favorite. I would love 25 Beast Hunter novels. But you're right. He does have a lot more to offer. And yeah, I want to know what's going on in his imagination as well. So I think this anthology is going to be really great. And one of the things that he said, obviously book 4 is coming out in spring 2023. So just have about a year. And he's going to include a short story in this anthology, Loss of a Legend, which is J-Lock's first attempt, taking the lead in a beast hunt. So that'll be great for fans of that series. But yeah, was there a particular line or exchange or scene from any of the books that you thought was like just awesome, that hit all the notes, that you would like to see dramatized, on the silver screen or something, or that you particularly liked?
I really like the way he handled the scenes with, oh gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. Kelton's love interest, Elaine.
Yeah.
Elaine. Yes. So in the first book, The Beast Hunter, where they meet and they have the introduction of the character, and it was one of the things I like about it is it could be construed as a bit of a risk to bring a character that important in as late in the book as he did, but it works so well. And it's not like a steamy romance type of thing. It's very much a slow burn love story, but the chemistry is there and the characters work so well, even though they're in this situation where they have this giant lumbering behemoth that's keeping them trapped inside this farmhouse. And I don't know, there's just something about the scenes with Kelton and Elaine that just really, like you said, hits all the right notes.
Yeah, I totally agree. His fight scenes are really good too. You know, that's something I always look forward to in a story, like that action. Yeah, dialogue's great. Um,
You
and
know what I like too is when he and this, you know, something you get to see um several times in the Beast Hunter is like when you have characters that have certain like prejudices towards each other and trying to work those things out. I think you were talking about like escapism earlier, and I think one of the important things about escapism and fantasy as a genre is it lets people see the world through a level of abstraction that makes the real world, you know, aspects of the real world a little clearer. So, you know, if you were reading about something like this and it were taking place in a modern setting and everything, it might not be as clear. The messages of tolerance and so forth might be a little muddied by all of the modern trappings, but take it out of that context and put it into this amazing fantasy world that has all of this action and heroism and everything else, and it just lays it bare. It's like, oh my. And so I think that's one of the things. I mean, it's not the main focus of the books, but when it comes up, he does it so well.
yes, yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, and you know, I think it's so cool because I mean, he's obviously put a lot of thought and he's developed like this whole world, and you've got political machinations going on. You've got personal situations. I mean, there's so much. You've got, uh, you know, xenophobia. You've got firearms. Like, I mean, it's so much, and to be done up in this neat little package is incredible. Like you said, and yeah, it really is an interesting lens to kind of overlay uh, for everything else. And I think that, man, like I would love to see these adapted into films. Like I think they're like, and you know, I know that's way down the line, and the book's always better than the movie, but I'm a very visual person. So when I'm reading his stories, like I just see them in my mind, and it's like, man, I wish everyone could see what I'm seeing. And everyone can just pick up the books. So
Exactly.
so where would you recommend, like including everything, where would be a great place for people to start with a Schaffer work?
Hmm. I would say if I'm going to tell people to start, I usually recommend that people start with the Beast Hunter, um, which is unusual because usually when I'm recommending an author, I recommend people start with the book that I started with, which in the case of the Schaffer novels would be Lost Under Two Moons. But I feel like Lost Under Two Moons is different enough from the other things that he offers that sometimes people can get the wrong impression and they think everything is going to be like wilderness survival, and it's a little more niche than like the Beast Hunter and some of the other things are. Um so I usually recommend starting with the Beast Hunter because then you get introduced into the world and it's very clear right away, oh, you know, this is going to appeal to a lot of people. And, you know, there's a lot of different things that I can find to like in this. Not that there aren't in Lost Under Two Moons, but like I say, it's just a bit more niche than some of the other ones, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Beast Hunter is a really good introduction to you know, the Schaffer canon, and then you can kind of get all these other branches and see what's going on, and it's such a great series. I agree. I think starting with the Beast Hunter is great. Yeah, you know, and like obviously I started with Into the North. Uh, and I think that's, I wouldn't recommend people start there, because I think it's good to go back and read the first in the series. But I guarantee as soon as you read Beast Hunter, you're going to want to pick up Into the North. And as soon as you read Into the North, you're going to want to read Dangerous Territory. And hopefully by the time, if people get done with those, we'll have book 4, and this is funny because I talked to Lindsay about it, and it must have been like a dream I had. And I just imagined Kelton Moore at sea, and like doing a beast hunt at sea. I'm like, oh man, like that. Well, obviously,
that
like
cool.
he doesn't need my help. He has his own ideas. But I had like literally had this dream of it. I'm like, did you tell me that it was going to be like he was going to meet pirates? And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh man, that's just me, But I think like I mean, these are characters that I see, a lot of fan fiction springing up around, just and just even in this world. I'd love to see a Kelton Moore video game or a tabletop game, all these things.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a great story.
I really love seeing people's interpretations of things during the annual fan art contests.
And yeah,
like some of the just wildly different interpretations on the Sleevak from the Kelton Moore. There's been, I don't remember how many different interpretations of them, and each one of them is so different. And it's just really cool to like, wow, we all read the same, and here we are coming up, and they all have the same basic elements, but
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, like I drew several years ago, I drew a Sleevak, and then it was much more reptilian, but then I actually got an award for this last fan art contest this last time around with a drawing, and I did like a whole pack of Sleevaks.
Oh, that was yours?
Yeah. Oh, did you see that?
That is so cool.
Oh man, thank you. Yeah,
I loved that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. And I think like that's the beauty, because I mean, obviously people can interpret, and he gives us enough tools and ingredients for us to imagine these creatures without bogging us down with such specifics. And then and I have always appreciated him, because I've sent him tons of art, and he's never like, that's not how that looks, no, that's wrong. He's just like, oh, that's cool, that's interesting. It's like, so Lindsay is so fan friendly. Like I've met authors before, and not denigrate, obviously, like they don't owe me anything, but who just aren't that accessible to their fans. And I think Lindsay really, really cares about his readers.
Oh yeah. And he so he's one of the authors who, if you come to him with a question or something like that, he's he really cares about giving you a response that the kind of response that he would want as a reader if he was asking this of one of his favorite authors like Brian Jakes or Tolkien or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Those are just two that I happen to know are his favorites that I came up with off the top of my head. But
yeah, two of mine as well. Yeah, that's I agree.
Yeah, I actually discovered Brian Jakes because of Lindsay. I've been listening to the Redwall audiobooks in the car over the last few years. I'm like, how did I not know about these?
Right. Yeah, no, for real. And yeah, I look forward to Schaffer becoming a bigger and bigger household name as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are you reading right now?
Right now, see, my problem is I always have like at least half a dozen books going at once.
Yep. Oh yeah, me too.
So I'm like, okay, hold on, how I'm reading. I've got 2 or 3 indie fantasies going at the moment, and then
nice.
Some kind of history book. I'd have to check, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny because you know, Lindsay, he thinks of everything. I remember uh, just a couple weeks ago, and I won't spoil this for book 4, but I had like this great idea, you know, and he's so nice to like even listen to these things. And I shared this idea. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. It's like, what if this? And he's like, yeah, I actually already thought of that, and I'm doing so. I'm like, oh, of course you did. You know, I have like this amazing epiphany, and it's just, you know, like that's breakfast for him. Yeah, it's great, you know, and to everyone listening, I highly recommend picking up a Schaffer novel. Start with Beast Hunter, and go from there, and you're going to find just an expansive world that you haven't encountered yet, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be high adventure. It's going to be like you said, there's some tasteful romance. There's some rip roaring action, and there's just great characters.
And throw this out there for any existing fans or soon to be super fans who hear us raving about Lindsay and say, "Ooh, I need to read those," and then get hooked, because why wouldn't you? One of the cool things that Lindsay's getting ready to add to his fan community is like getting to see unpublished snippets or things from early in his writing career that have never
cool.
not been put out yet, and so they're going to be exclusive to the fan community.
Nice. That's awesome. I didn't know.
So
that's
like
cool.
that's like a glimpse inside of you know, one of our favorite writers' mind, you know, outside of just what we get to see in the polished
That's
published
awesome.
books. That's going to
Some
be really
lost
exciting.
treasures.
Lost treasures. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
The lost treasures of Schaffer.
Yeah. No, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. It's so nice to meet you. I'm grateful for this technology that facilitates this, and it's so cool. I mean, like, you know, we've never met before, but look how much stuff we can connect on, and here, you know, Lindsay's bringing more and more fans together. I mean, he's doing so. He's already done so much for us with his writing, and now he's bringing more people together as well. So thank you.
Hey, thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was like I really liked the hounds in books, like, because I'm a dog person, and that was,
I love in Dangerous Territory that we got to see more of the Tamarin hounds up close.
Yeah.
The Beast Hunter, they were just sort of, they were there, and they were a thing that we kind of tangentially got to see some of, and then in Dangerous Territory, like, we really got to know an individual of them better. That was really fun.
Yeah. You know, it's, you know, I prefer Schaffer's work to, you know, Sapkowski. Oh, sorry, man. But like, I mean, like, there's so I see some parallels between, you know, the Beast Hunter and like the Witcher series, you know, especially like Beast Hunter started serialized. That's how the Witcher started serialized, and you know, and obviously it took a long time for the Witcher to gain as much traction as it has today, you know, decades. So I really see the Beast Hunter, you know, getting as big or bigger than the Witcher series. And you know, not that's a competition, but just for a frame of reference. And because obviously in there, I mean, you have got political implications, you've got big armies doing stuff, you know, as well as these monsters. And one of my favorite shirts that and sweaters that Lindsay's made, it's a picture. Have you seen it? You know, it's a picture of the guy. It's like, oh, you use a sword to hunt monsters. That's cute.
It's cute. Oh, I love that one.
Yeah.
I really like the other one he has on the shop too, where it has the beast and then it's like a heads up display, insert
Yep.
bullet here,
Yeah.
all those
Yep.
hunter sees.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like I'm looking forward to more and more like apparel and stuff like that. And so obviously you're in Wyoming. Do you get to shoot much? I know there's plenty of guns out there.
I could, but I'm not much of a gun person. My dad is,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm such a jumpy guy that like me handling a firearm would probably not be. It would be like, bang, ah!
That's funny. Yeah, and I do like, because obviously firearms enthusiasts can appreciate the beast hunter, but also just from a fantasy perspective, there is some creative elements to that aren't run of the mill. So I do like that, and I'm much more of a hand-to-hand guy. So I do like anytime there's some fisticuffs, and then obviously the Ripper too. I like some handheld weapons.
Is cool.
Yeah, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. But I definitely look forward to talking to you again, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Aaron.
Yeah, likewise. I'm really glad we got to do this.
Yeah, me too. Well, I hope you have a good night, brother.
You too.
Thanks. Bye, man.